Today, we're going to peel back the layers of what we call reality by diving into a really fascinating spiritual text from 1967. It's called Chapters of Life by Lobsang Rampa, and believe me, it challenges just about everything we think we know about ourselves and the universe. So, let's get into it.
You know, the book kicks off with a question that's probably as old as humanity itself, and it's the very question that's going to guide us today. Is this world we see and touch the full picture, or is there something more? Something just beyond what our senses can pick up? And right here, this is the book's central and honestly kind of startling claim. According to Rampa, the person you think of as you, your thoughts, your feelings, your day-to-day decisions, that's just the tip of the iceberg, a mere 1/10 of who you really are. So what in the world is that other 90%? And what does it mean for us? Well, that's exactly what we're here to explore.
All right, here's how we're going to break this all down. We're going to look at 5 key ideas. We'll start with our own limited reality, then we'll uncover this thing called the Overself, the real power behind the scenes. From there, we'll zoom out to explore parallel worlds, look at the soul's journey after death, and then we'll get into the book's pretty surprising prophecies for the future of humanity.
So, let's jump right into that first big point, our limited reality. The book uses this incredible analogy to describe just how much potential we're wasting. So, picture this. We're all built like these high-performance 10-cylinder engines. We've all this capacity for incredible power, but in reality, we're just chugging along on a single cylinder, our tiny conscious mind. The other 9 cylinders, which represent our massive subconscious, are just sitting there, completely unused. I mean, the implication is staggering, right? We are living just a tiny fraction of our true potential.
And that, of course, brings up a huge question. If we're only 1/10 of the whole picture, then who or what is the other 9/10? Well, the book has a very, very specific answer.
Get ready for this one. It's a concept called the Overself. This isn't just your subconscious mind. It's a higher, more evolved version of you that exists in a totally different dimension. And from that higher plane, it basically operates your physical body like a puppet, using it to learn the lessons of life here on Earth. So in this view, we're kind of like remote-controlled vehicles for a much greater consciousness.
And the idea goes even deeper. An Overself isn't necessarily just focused on your life. It could be multitasking, experiencing life through other bodies, on other worlds and other dimensions, all at the same time. You might just be one of many lives your Overself is living right this very second.
So, what's the point of this whole puppet show? The book gives us a really beautiful metaphor. Think about a dragonfly grub living its whole life down in the mud of a pond. To that little grub, the mud is everything. It's the whole universe. But then, one day, it goes through this incredible transformation and emerges into the open air as a dragonfly. For the Overself, our life on Earth is like that muddy pond. It's a necessary stage of development before we can evolve and ascend to a much higher state of being.
Now, this idea of a higher plane naturally leads us to an even bigger concept. I mean, if there are other planes for our Overself, could there be other worlds existing right here alongside our own?
Rampa's text says that yes, our reality is absolutely not alone. It coexists with other dimensions, a 4th, a 5th, all the way up to a 9th, where someone could supposedly understand the very origin of life itself. And these aren't like distant galaxies, they're parallel worlds, layered right on top of ours.
So, what's the proof? Well, the book points to these historical mysteries that are just really hard to explain. You've got the disappearance of Flight 19 back in 1945, on a perfectly clear day. There are documented cases of a person's footprints in the snow just stopping. Or a man in full view of his family who just vanished in the middle of an open field. The theory here is that these aren't just unsolved cases, but maybe, just maybe, they're proof of people accidentally slipping through the veil into another reality.
So if we can slip between worlds, what happens when our time in this world is officially over? What happens when the puppet strings are finally cut for good? The book gives a remarkably detailed roadmap of the dying process.
Okay, so the book describes this 5-stage process. It all starts with what we call clinical death, but it doesn't stop there. A faint, shimmering mist is said to rise from the body, and it slowly gathers into a perfect ethereal copy of the person. That's the astral body. This new form is still attached to the physical body by something called a silver cord. As that cord gets thinner and thinner, it finally breaks, and the soul is set free, leaving the body behind as just an empty shell.
So where does the soul go then? First, it heads to a place called the Hall of Memories. And here, it gets to review every single moment of its past life.
not for judgment, but for understanding, to see the lessons, to recognize the mistakes, and to appreciate the growth. After this life review, the soul gets to rest and get ready for whatever's next, whether that's moving on to a higher plane or maybe even coming back to Earth for another round of learning.
Now, this whole process of individual evolution isn't just happening on its own. The book argues it's all part of a much bigger shift for all of humanity, a coming new age for which it makes some very, very specific prophecies.
Now, before we get to Rampa's predictions, it's worth pointing out that this core idea that our visible world is just a shadow of a greater reality is ancient. I mean, thousands of years ago, Plato's allegory of the cave explored this exact concept: humanity trapped, mistaking shadows for the real thing. It's a foundational idea that really sets the stage for what the book says is coming next.
And this is where the book gets incredibly specific with its prophecies. Remember, this was written back in the 60s, and it made some really bold claims for the future. A major heat wave in 1981, a war in space in 2004, and even an alien arrival in 2008. It pinpointed May 5th, 2000 as the official start of this new age. Now, obviously looking back, these events didn't exactly unfold as predicted, but they do show this powerful optimism about a massive global transformation.
So, whether you see these ideas as profound truths or wild speculations, or maybe just fascinating metaphors, Chapters of Life really forces you to confront your own limited perception. And it leaves all of us with one final, deeply personal question to think about. If you are just the tip of the iceberg, what is the rest of you, that huge hidden subconscious self, thinking, feeling, and doing at this very moment?